Speaking on the topic of that was then, this is now. In the early 1960s, we know that it was a tumultuous time, and at the height of increased racial violence in the South and as civil rights movement expanded. But even long before then, for years we fought for jobs, the right to vote, and anti-lynching legislation. It was an opportunity for Blacks to realize their goals for social justice and human rights through united, constructive action. That was then. This is now. Fast forward to 2018, where we have thousands of groups and movements on a mission to lead, advocate for, and empower those of African descent, their families, and their communities. A woman's right to vote was passed by Congress in 1919 and approved in 1920. The 19th Amendment guarantees all American women the right to vote. In 1965, along the 54-mile highway, there was a march from Selma, Alabama, to the state capital of Montgomery. This march was to demonstrate the desire of African American citizens to exercise their constitutional right to vote, and in defiance of segregationist repression. By shedding the bright lights on racial injustice, they contributed to passage that year of the Voting Rights Act, a landmark federal achievement of the civil rights movement. And in 1963, the Equal Pay Act is passed, promising. Let's hone in on that key word of promising, which is showing a sign. Equitable wages for the same work, regardless of race, color, religion, national origin, or sex of the worker. And in 1937, the U.S. Supreme Court upholds Washington State's minimum wage laws for women. That was then. August 28, 1963, there was a march on Washington where we marched to advocate for civil and economic rights for African Americans, where the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave his historic I Have a Dream speech, in which he called for an end to racism. On October 16, 1995, the Million Man March was a gathering of African American men in Washington, D.C. The march was part of a larger movement that was intended to make the elected officials sit up and take notice of the urban and minority issues through voter registration campaigns. That was then. This is now. Equal pay for equal work. Equal pay for equal work is the concept, meaning an abstract, non-concrete, theoretical idea or plan. Keeping in mind that word concept. Non-concrete, theoretical plan of labor rights that individuals in the same workplace be given equal pay. According to the National Women's Law Center, American women who work full-time, year-round, are paid only 80 cents for every dollar paid to men. And for women of color, the wage gap is even larger. Where Black women working full-time year-round are typically paid only 63 cents for every dollar, and this wage gap is at every educational level, even when they have earned graduate degrees. Women are still underrepresented in leadership. 19% of all members of Congress are women. Of 50 state governors, 4 are women. Of the Fortune 500 companies, 25 are led by CEOs, women CEOs. Now, legislation, statutes, laws, such as voter ID laws and voter ID requirements that threaten our basic right to vote, including but not limited to the destructive influence of money in politics, a politicized judicial branch, districts that depress electoral competition, and policies designed to make voting more difficult. On January 21st, 2017, the Women's March was a worldwide protest to advocate legislation and policies regarding human rights and other issues, reproductive rights, the natural environment, LGBTQ rights, racial equality, freedom of religion, and workers' rights. Time to take the blinders off. Here we are today, gathered to study the past, discuss our present, and plan our future. This cannot and must not be another feel-good meeting with good intentions, but it must be intentional, purposeful, and we must take action and steps to not only making a difference, but being the difference. Ask yourself, am I doing enough? Am I doing all that I can to make a difference and be part of the change we so desperately need in America today to eradicate racism, bigotry, hatred, and to be able to treat all people with humanity and to move not this country forward, but to move our country forward? That was then. This is now. Now,